The PRD has done several community sessions this past year. What can you tell me about these sessions and kind of what are they?
The sessions are a get-to-know-you kind of sessions with Chief and Council and some of their staff members, as well as our board of directors and our staff. And what are our needs? What do they need? What can we work together with? What can we collaborate on? With a lot of the legislative changes that came back in this last year and a bit, what is that going to look like for collaboration and working together to get those, especially when you're not working with specific regulations or knowing what they are, it makes it a little bit harder, but keeping that communication open and working on it even though we don't have regulations in place, so to speak. But the biggest thing is just getting to know each other and getting that feeling that we can talk about the hard things and still get things accomplished that we need to.
What are some of the most meaningful moments from these sessions in your eyes?
Is again the personal, when you get kind of off script a little, when you go have your breaks and you get to talk to specific counselors and even the chiefs, and just taking that time to get to know on a more personal level background and where we come up, how we grew up. And I really like those takeaways from there. In addition to the regular communication that you always have, it kind of gives that nice home feel when you can do that on a personal level.
Mm-hmm. Connect with individuals as an individual rather than as a politician.
Correct, yes.
What is the importance of these sessions, both for the community and the PRD?
Is with the new DRIPA and UNDRIP that have been put in place by the provincial government, I think it's important to have those relationships, and we're building those future aspects, whatever they be, that we can do it together. We're looking at what is land use planning going to look like? What is just the overall future? DRIPA has changed a lot in BC. Province is saying you must now instead of it's optional. What does that look like for businesses? What does that look like for oil and gas, resource sector? And just keeping those communications open at these meetings is important as well, because they're involved. It's the Crown lands that a lot of this stuff is happening on, and so having that communication open and being honest about our feelings makes a big difference in the answers we get. And there's one chief that keeps saying, give us the hard questions, and he gives us answers, sometimes answers we want to hear and sometimes we don't. So that open communication, I think, has been a big plus of what's coming out of these meetings, and just being able to connect, I guess, on a level that is not offensive to anyone.
Mm-hmm. Of course, you have to have open dialogue, and less things get lost in the weeds if you have more open communication.
Correct, yes, and that's very important to any relationship building, no matter what you do.
These sessions help strengthen dialogue and allow progress on both sides. What are some of the key insights that the PRD has gleaned from these sessions? Being
invited to their, I'm going to say their events that they hold. Being invited in so that we can participate. You've got Doig Days, you've got Pemmican Days, and you've got West Mo Days. It allows people to see what actually is happening on a level that you probably haven't seen before. It allows us to see celebrations. Soto First Nations celebrated the grand opening of their community center in July of this last year. I attended, and it was amazing. I don't know how many times I heard the chief say this is a very humbling experience. And having, the municipalities, all the industry that they work with come into one place and help celebrate. It's an event that it's really hard to explain. You have the chief and council and they're speaking, and you're just listening the road that it took to get there, and the years and the development it took to get there. And to me, it's very, very important and humbling myself when I can sit and witness that specific event happening. And another one that I wasn't able to attend, as I had another one, was the Enbridge and Doig renaming of their compressor station. Mm-hmm. Just the importance, and it shows the collaboration that not only industry, but the chair of the day was attended, and it was just it's an amazing event. And those are the things that we get invited to more and more as that relationship builds through these community-to-community meetings. And I just look at it as the start, and the things that we can do together going forward is going to be basically endless.
There's been a change in leadership in recent months, hasn't there?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Director Keeley, now MLA Keeley, sat on the board from the 2022 election till he officially resigned only on November 6th, but he was on the board till that time as he became MLA and resigned. And on October 19th of this year, he became the MLA, the official representative for the North Peace. And he still keeps in contact with us. He joined us at the Christmas party that we had for staff and directors on Friday last week. And it wasn't an easy road for him, I guess. You could say before he became a director, he gave me a call to see what it was all about. And I kind of told him three things. It's more than 2 meetings a month, like everybody keeps telling us to try and get us hooked in to do it. You get paid a lot less than you have in your own business, and make sure you got family support. Without those three things, knowing going ahead, you're going to have trouble if you think it's going to be smooth sailing. And I think he adapted really well in making that transition. I think he's going to be fine with it as well.
With Keeley resigning as Area B Director, there will of course be a by-election in 2025. You think you've already passed something in the PRD about that. What can you tell me about this, and what does this mean for residents of Area B?
At the last board meeting, the board appointed the chief election officer as well as the deputy chief election officer. And what this means for Area B is they have to go back to the voting stations. It'll happen within the first quarter of 2025, and the chief election officer will be setting out those dates. I would imagine as soon as she gets it all together. But they, once again, will have to go back to the election table and see how many people will actually, take up the challenge to try and run as director. It's not an easy job some days, and some days it's amazing, and other days it's not so good. But anybody that would like to attempt to run and put their name out, I definitely support that, because we need to have that local input and that local voice. And sometimes we get lost it gets lost in what happens when the provincial takes over and we don't get to hear the local voice. And so anybody that would like to put their name forward and nominate somebody even, definitely, I would say go for it and get ready for going to the polls one more time. Looking into next year, I hear the PRD are planning some exciting online communication updates. What can you tell me about that? It's a new website where I struggle with the current one and trying to get the information, and so I can only imagine what the general public will be, struggling with to get the information they need. As my bid for chair this year, communication is a big key to how I would like to get things done and keep things going. And communication, no matter how good we think we are, we always fall short. And I think having this new website where minimal clicks, getting to the point you want, having a search bar that'll get you there quicker. I'm hoping that this is something that'll kind of bridge that gap that we don't see, or that we keep fighting with right now with our constituents right across the regional district. We don't have the newspaper anymore, so that makes it harder. A lot of the older generation, that's what they looked at, and not all of them have the high-tech phones. And so we're looking for different ways where they can still communicate with us, have their communications posted so that they can see what's happening, and just open it up all the way through. We already do it at the board with the gallery comments, and having that, they can have their 2 minutes say, and just taking that piece over into the website. And like right now we're having Have Your Say tab is to me is what I look at to see what comments are making and being used, because that will be coming directly from the public and not necessarily staff, and it gives us a good idea of what we need to do going forward. Mm-hmm. An unfiltered public perspective. Correct. What are some of the PRD's communication and engagement goals going into next year, 2025? Our goals is definitely to bridge that gap. We're not. I'm going to continue with my community roundtables personally as an Area D director to make sure we get keep that consistency. Not being afraid to hear what the public has to say, I think, is a big one. The importance of understanding what they're asking. A lot of times, the first time they'll say something we don't always understand, and we might have to ask questions for clarity. But just allowing them to have that platform that they can, and that comfort zone that they can come and talk to us. They might not like the answers they get because of policy and stuff, but at least they have that platform that they can come and speak. And I would like to open that up more. And we have it now, but I just think some of the public don't realize they have that same opportunity to come into the office and ask the questions, to the CAO or staff that can answer them quicker. A lot of times they take the avenue of the director, and I just end up flipping them over to staff as they're the ones working on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. But just opening that door so that they can come in and feel comfortable coming in and asking those questions that they think might be not as good as coming through an elected official.
And are you going to be doing any updates or any videos starting in the new year?
We'll be, I'd like to continue this. This is our first one.
Yes.
We're hoping to keep this up. Every quarter is doing like a chairs update and what's happened over the last 3 months and what we're planning to do going forward over the next 3 months. And just to, again, make sure that they understand and know what we're doing as a regional district, because sometimes, again, the communication isn't always there. And it's whatever we can do to make sure that they get the message clear, that we're not out here to work against them, and we're here to work with them. And sometimes that gets skewed, and it's not always painted in a nice color. And so I want to make sure that understanding that door is open for them to come and ask questions and get clarity and have a set of comfort that they can come in and it's not going to be shut down or shot down. I
imagine that with the new website, residents will be able to access information far easier than they have been before, as you already mentioned.
Yeah, and that's supposed to, again, bridge that gap that we have with the communication with the constituents and residents. And I think once they get used to knowing that they can get any of our information on a website without having to spend hours trying to find it, I think a lot of the frustration will go. They probably still will ask questions for clarity on different policies and bylaws, but it allows them to have access to it quicker. Everybody's time is valuable, and when we're trying to find information and we can't find it, it makes it a little more difficult for us to try and be positive about something we can't find, and it'll just be that frustration piece will go out, and them willing to communicate with us, call staff, say clarifying on different things. You amended this bylaw, can you explain why it was amended? To try and get those questions answered quickly before it becomes an event that doesn't need to happen.
On a more personal note, what are some of your highlights from this year?
Some of the highlights, not necessarily positive, but we had our drought that came in that affected the agriculture. It affected forest fires. It was dry, and those battles were impacted right across the region. And it wasn't just us, but and on top of that, we had a mill closure in Fort St. John. Mm-hmm. And so when you add all those impacts together, you can just see the frustration, the heartache, the sadness, I guess, of the people in the region as to everything going on. Seeing the rain and the snow we've had this fall kind of lightens the load a little bit as to moisture coming in and possibly not having a drought next year. Specifically to the producers in the area, like you got the grain producers that didn't get the yield. You had, the beef producers that had to take off pasture early. Lamb and goat producers had to come off pasture early. Vegetable gardeners, I think they could manually water, so they were a little bit better off. But, farmers market, they're, trying to get the guys to come back and purchase for locally. It was all a kind of a frustrating year. It felt frustrating. I know a lot of them wasn't frustrated, but it felt like a frustrating year where it was just one challenge after another challenge after another challenge. But the resiliency of the people in the PRD was amazing to see the outcomes in fall and the positive attitude they came out with it was, I'm glad to live in this region where people find ways to make things work and to grow food and to just be positive, even though the drought has kind of lingered for 3 years. But they're really, the resiliency shone through, especially this year, is what I've noticed. And I'm just happy to live in the region because of it.
What are some of your key priorities moving forward?
First off is finding out what the mandate letters are going to be, because that kind of focuses on where we need to advocate for our members, right? So, or our communities around as a whole. We have healthcare as a big one that really comes up, the agriculture drought, and just wind farms, green energy. That's going to be a big one coming up with the call to power with BC Hydro. What is that going to look like? How many applications are we going to do? And how many of them are proposed for up in the north? What's that going to look like for our landscape? Is it all on Crown land? Is it private land? And so these are kind of the questions that need to be asked and get answers. And once those mandate letters come through, we'll have a better idea as to who we need to talk to specifically, where we can go for advocacy and placement. The wind farms have been a big topic in this area for a long time. And moving forward, I think that will be one of the key indicators going forward, what that's going to look like and what the landscape is going to look like in the conversations we have with ministries and First Nations as well, moving forward. Another point would be the continued C2C meetings, especially with a lot of the development coming. Those meetings are going to be crucial going forward. Do our local First Nations have a part? Do they own portion of the project happening? Is that going to affect how they, work off of their culture? How is that going to affect how they secure food? Those conversations are going to be important with all the, those wind projects coming up. And so for me, that's very, very key, is making sure that our collaboration with our First Nation neighbors are going to really keep on going. The other frustration and looking forward to, hopefully, is getting the legislation that is there, is getting some regulations to come with it. Looking forward to what our parameters are going to be so that we know what we can do with those regulations. And it's, some of them are a year and a half, 2 years out, but we have to still keep, collaborating with our First Nations neighbors to make sure that once they do come in place, we have that line of communication open and that relationship built, that we can move forward on both sides of the coin, so to speak. Because when you're changing legislation, it's not always easy when you're making that initial change. Our goal this coming year, is to try and better communicate with our residents. That has been something that during the course of this interview, I think I've said numerous times, is we have to bridge that gap and make sure that gets there. It is very, very important moving forward with the new website that is just one piece of making sure we can close that gap, and making sure that the residents understand that they can come and ask us questions. If they're unclear, they don't have to wait for community roundtables. They don't have to wait for a specific meeting, that they can come and ask those questions anytime. And open door policy, I've heard our CEO say that numerous times, and he definitely pushes it. And so our staff are here to help. We're here not to fight with our residents, and we really want to make sure that they understand that is something, that the open door policy is very, very important. And I just reiterate that, because it is very important to make sure they have that comfort to come in and talk to us. And as we enter the holiday season and we move into the new year, I just would like to wish everybody a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and a prosperous new year going forward.